Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm not judging Dylan.
Look, we air our grievances before the podcast, so you guys get a nice clean one.
Exactly.
And there's no bitterness here.
Nope, not one bit.
We're talking about episode 322, The Turning Point.
Oh boy, are we. Dylan, did you have any previous memory of this episode?
No.
I did not either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have some questions.
Okay. Well, we'll be getting into it here shortly. But we did a little bit of this at the end of last episode, but I feel like I gotta color in the thing. So we just talked about episode 281 was the previous one we covered, which is following the end of the road trip. The last episode we talked about that had Katrina on it was 267. It ended with a handshake, which is an episode that aired May 7th of 1994. So that's where we left Katrina. Then in 283, A Book by Its Cover, which we didn't cover, Katrina shows up again. That came out September 24th of 94. So it had been about a 4-month gap between Katrina appearances. But she comes up in that one. We didn't cover it, but it's just brief. Then she pops up again in 294, which is Unto Us a Child is Born. That aired December 24th of 94, and we have already talked about it. You can listen to episode 111 of our show, which, Andrew, that was 100 episodes ago.
Jesus. That was 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago. Over 2 years ago.
No. I thought that was last Christmas. What did we do last Christmas?
I could not believe when I read it. And then I was like, oh, right. Because last year we did Connie. And before that is when we did Pastor George Barkley coming off of Maury. But still, seems absolutely insane that we covered that one.
Time seems to be continually happening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So quickly. But the big story with that episode, that's Katrina's first Christmas as a Christian. She jumps on to help Eugene out with the radio production of Jimmy's Christmas show. And through it all is insisting that they are just friends. And then they wind up starring as Mary and Joseph, and they get Bibles for each other. Katrina, because what else is she going to do? And Eugene, because Connie recommended it.
I will say Katrina definitely gave the better gift because it was a monogrammed Bible, and that is extra points.
The embossing is worth extra.
I don't know. I mean, my mom always had her name in little gold lettering on her Bible, and I think my dad did too when he had a Bible. So yeah, no, I don't know. It's always a sign of like, oh boy, this person is about the word.
Well, Andrew, don't spoil my 5-year gift to you.
Oh boy,
our anniversary's coming up here.
Oh man, what sacred text should I get Dylan inscribed with his name?
Yeah.
Could it be the Bible? Could it be the Kama Sutra? We don't know.
But to hit this, so it ended with a handshake is like the episode where Katrina has become a Christian and her and Eugene decide that like they're not going to pursue a relationship. Yeah. Then their next big episode is Unto Us a Child is Born, and it ends with Eugene like silently confessing his love for her as she walks away, and they both give each other Bibles despite insisting that they are only friends. Then they have 3 episodes together of The Perfect Witness, which we also covered 2 years ago. This episode 117 to 119 of our show.
Did we put out extra episodes in 2021? Like, did we put out more than 50 episodes that year?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you count bonus episodes, that would be 22.
Yeah.
And then, and so that those episodes aired April of 95. So we're, and now we are finally getting to the episodes that we're covering today. which is 322, The Turning Point, and that aired July 8th of 1995. So we have covered we are jumping forward a year in like Odyssey from where we last covered, and over a year from where Katrina was last in an episode that we talked about like as part of this arc. So I just felt like it was beneficial to kind of fill in the gap there.
Oh yeah, gotta give a lot of context because it is important, and you know the unfortunate reality of Eugene and Katrina kind of being being a B plot romance is that they don't really get a ton of their own episodes where they're just, you know, it's just them hashing stuff out.
Right. Well, and that's like the last 8 episodes we did had zero reference to Katrina, and we kept talking about it. So I feel like it is worth now setting up.
Yeah.
Because it was important that we established like the Eugene and Bernard road trip, leaving town, like all of that matters as part of this general story. But we're really like the thing that that's been the through line so far has been the Eugene and Katrina arc,
which is not an arc.
It just got sidelined for so long. So it was like weird even for me to try and get back into it here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is definitely strange, and jumping forward in time, you know, we get mention of some future heavyweights in the show. Like I don't know if this is the first episode where Armitage Shanks is mentioned, named and voiced.
Yes, this is Bernard Earhart playing Armitage Shanks. This is Katrina's dad. This is a different voice actor than the one in Novacom, who I'm most familiar with. And so this is his initial appearance as
He sounds
Armitage.
greasier in this than he does in Novacom.
The other thing, though, in Novacom, to cut him some slack, is the man is dying that whole series, so they can get away with it a little bit better.
It does sound a bit more wistful.
But yeah, Bernard Earhart has done a bunch of voice acting, but nothing of like note, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say... has he been a reoccurring voice actor on the show before?
He is not. He's popped in a couple episodes here and there, but this is his only real recurring role.
It's not even recurring. He just plays Armitage once.
Does he only play him once? No.
Maybe twice.
He continues to play him. I think he's got like 6 episodes as Armitage.
Okay.
Because Armitage will continue to come up as we go forward. Foreshadowing.
Lovely.
But yeah, and then lastly, context-wise, this is an episode written and directed by Sir Paul McCusker.
God bless him. May the Lord keep him and be with his spirit. Shout out
Amen.
to my buddy Paul. Tell me how the Catholic side of the pond is doing these days.
Anything else you feel like we should hit up top? Or
nothing.
Should we talk about the fact, I guess we maybe talked about this before, but Armitage Shanks is named after a toilet. I feel like that's important.
Yeah, we have talked about that, yeah.
I
remember that from like 4 years ago or whatever.
Yes, when we did Novacom and he last came up. Yeah. Because I believe I was with you in South Africa the first time that I saw a toilet that was Armitage Shanks branded, and I lost my mind. And
was that at that rest stop where we got the fancy like the Coca-Cola brand ginger beer?
Stony, yeah, possibly. I honestly don't remember, but
it was like
yeah,
I think it was when we were about to leave.
Yeah, but that's
oh man, Chalk Squad. Shoot us an email if you want to learn more about me and Dylan's 2 weeks in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the inception of this podcast.
It is, and it's 4 years old, so that story's a vintage at this point.
Dude, 5 this summer.
Oh my God, I'm old.
Yep. I know. All right, I'm going to roll the
move
promo.
on with life.
Eugene and Katrina's roller coaster relationship takes a surprising turn. Next time on Adventures in Odyssey. After Eugene's disastrous first meeting with Katrina's father, will Daddy approve of this new love or try to end the relationship altogether? Listen in for either wedding bells or broken hearts. All on the next Adventure in Odyssey.
I do not appreciate how he said daddy. Would just like to say that off the top. It made me, I don't know, there was a little bit of like sass, like, oh, daddy? Like, be a good daddy? Mm-hmm. Yep. Nope. Music was better though, and felt more theme appropriate than whatever Beethoven mashup we got last time.
I don't know. The Beethoven mashup was fun. Does this feel better? I guess it does. It's not great.
It makes more sense.
Sure. That ain't that the truth?
Oh man, I could use dollars, but cents will have to do.
So we start off the episode with Eugene in a very nice suit.
Yeah, no, he's okay. What color? Just give me a guess.
It's black.
You think it's a black suit?
I think it's black.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I would love to see him in a nice little like navy blue and like cream number. I feel like that'd be really nice. But he has black glasses, doesn't he? He's got like black Coke bottle glasses.
No, well, so it depends. So the complete guide artwork from the cartoon has them as brown.
Okay.
The most recent official guide artwork has them as like silver.
Yeah, like almost like a wireframe silver glass.
Yeah, I mean they're thicker than a wireframe, which is what threw me off. But
interesting.
Yeah, but they're pretty close to your glasses.
Oh, lovely. Well, I do think that my glasses fit nicely with a navy blue suit, so I'm just going to live in my own little fantasy and pretend that he's wearing a really snatched navy blue suit.
Yep, fair.
So he's come to work dressed in a suit for good reason to see Armitage Shanks, Katrina's father, who is just, as is made abundantly clear, oh, why are you stressed out? This is just the father of your friend, right?
Yes. And Connie and Jack are having an absolute blast mocking Eugene in this scene. And I love it so much. It's so funny to flash forward a year in the show in 1 week.
That's true. Especially
because it's just like, because last episode I kind of complained about Jack more than I wanted to.
Yeah.
And it was
more
all
than you
about
ever have.
yeah, and it was all about like the tension between him and Connie. And in this episode, they're both the best and making fun of Eugene.
In just the best way, and like
it's like perfect friend ribbing. Mm-hmm. Like it's
they're kind, and like I really appreciate Jack's conversation with Eugene towards the end where he's talking about drastic change and all of that. Like, yeah, I think that this is a really strong showing from both Connie and Jack coming off of the last episode we covered, which was very bad.
Yeah, but I don't know that it was even that bad, but like
it definitely turned around by the end, but it wasn't either of their best showing. And like you can hear the chemistry of even just the cast members.
For sure. And yeah, here Eugene's right. He's insisting that he's like, I'm friends with Katrina. I'm nervous because like Armitage is a fancy businessman. Of course, he should wear a nice suit for that. And Jack just rules, and Eugene keeps like reorganizing things. And Jack's like, why don't you just go upstairs, work on the Samson display? Like you can do that without like getting messy or anything. And then I'll call when, when they're here and you can come down. Then Eugene goes up there and he's just like rehearsing what he's gonna say when Armitage walks in.
This is very relatable.
Okay,
Dylan,
I agree.
You've never, I don't know, have you ever been in this situation?
Not
with a romantic person's father?
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I would say probably your experience is more similar to the situation because the romance was non-defined at the time.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yes, I have had many versions of this where I'm like, I don't know what the relationship is, but this is your father.
And that, my friends, is why I always default to Mr. Last Name.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, I don't call anybody by their name, period. And that just avoids the problem.
Oh.
I'm very avoidant. No adults get named. I talk about them with names. I never talk to them with a name. Solves all the problems.
It does. I can't, it's so in my nature to be like, oh, hi, Mr. Yada Yada.
Oh, hi.
Mrs. Yada Yada. Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
But what
nice to meet you.
Hey, okay. Yeah.
Like, there's so many options that aren't, I'm going to say your name.
That's fair.
But yes, it's still awkward, and especially when you know, like, the thing I don't think I have is the knowing that it was coming kind of thing, where it's like, oh, this is a formal meeting.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of just, like, going over to places growing up when, like, the person who I was into lived there. Mm-hmm. And then you're just, like, going to run into parents.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, it was just a byproduct of the interaction in general.
Correct. It's not like an arranged meeting.
Yeah, you're not getting lunch or something.
Takes the pressure off a little bit because it's like, I can see this person and then leave immediately. Yeah, because I am probably just coming to this place to, like, pick someone up.
Still always been a Mr. Mr. last name, Mrs. last name. I don't know. Yeah, I've just...
Yeah, that if you have to say their name, that's the way to go. But, and maybe this is... Look, this might be a terrible strategy. Mm-hmm. But avoiding their name altogether has worked for me thus far.
No, I do think that I think that is a really solid strategy, and it keeps you out of trouble in a way that my anecdotes for this episode will prove that I don't stay out of trouble when it comes to meeting parents and such for the first time. I think, flashback. As a child, I spent a lot of time with one of my neighbors, who was very close friends, like close family friends, and I always called her Mrs. Bosis. You know, not to dox her, but yeah.
You always called your friend Mrs. Bosis.
I did, yeah. Well, she was my friend, so I worked in her garden. No, but I would hang out with her kids, and I'd spend the night there, best friend with her son, and she was always Mrs. Bosis. Like, when she would kiss me goodnight, I'd be like, oh, thank you, Mrs. Bosis.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, as a kid, that is, yeah, unless it's a family member, in which case it's like aunt or uncle, first name. Yeah. But, like, yeah, I was very much. No, I'm talking much more in my, like, adult life that I just don't say people's names has come up.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Because as a kid, it's well defined.
Yeah.
But Eugene's not a kid.
Are we sure?
Like, Eugene's having the adult problem
True.
What do I call this person?
So that's what we're learning here, is that I'm having adult problems that I'm ill-equipped to deal with. Oh my goodness. All right. Can I tell you the story of meeting Alyssa's parents for the first time?
Sure, Andrew.
Podcast. Just get it out of the way.
First, do you want to? Are you telling me or are you telling the podcast, Andrew?
I can do both.
Okay. I just want you to know.
Okay.
Which you're doing. So establish who this is.
Yes. A friend of the podcast, Alyssa Brenner. When I met her parents for the first time, her nephews were over, and I walked into their house, and her little nephew, who was probably 3 or 4 at the time, was running around with a shirt and no underwear on. And so I said, oh, the little man's Donald ducking it. And that was my introduction to the esteemed Sonia Brenner.
I love that.
Yeah, no.
Nice to know that I played, at least a minor role in that by being the person who always. I think that's a Demi Adijuibe thing that I stole from him, the Donald ducking. But regardless,
I thought it was a Last Week Tonight thing.
No, I don't think so. At least not where I got it. I'm pretty sure I stole it from Demi. But regardless, I'm glad to have passed that on to you, and then to have that be the first impression for your now, like, 5-year girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it makes a really strong first impression in that I don't know that it can get much worse or weirder from there.
Yeah. All right.
I gave her a lot of free Starbucks when she came by. Alyssa's mom, that is.
There you go.
A lot of reconnaissance work.
Well, so Eugene's strategy here is, rather than saying that a child is Donald ducking it, Eugene's strategy is to knock over the temple pillars, Samson style, and just get himself very dirty.
Covered in drywall dust.
And Yeah.
And this is as Katrina...
That's right after Jack calls up and says that
Yeah.
he's sending them upstairs.
Yeah, because Eugene goes into a panic and is like, oh, these pillars need to stand up straight or something. And so he is
Pushes
moving
up
them.
against them and then pushes them down.
Yep.
And then Armitage walks in and is,
Verbally
Eugene is-
displeased.
Eugene is covered in dirt, and Katrina goes, Eugene, this is my father, Armitage. Say hi, Daddy, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
she
Say
in
hi,
the same
Daddy.
breath introduces her father by his first name and then refers to him as Daddy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a Katrina thing, though. Like, I feel like she does that in Novacom, too.
Probably.
I don't know.
I know that there are people who do this. I am just not those people, and those people are a little odd.
Yeah, no. And honestly, it's really the extra D and Y at the end
Correct.
that makes it so much worse.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause,
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Say hello, Dad, is much more normal than Daddy.
Right. No. My problem is definitely Daddy, but also, so do you? Yeah. Well, as we're talking about first name bases, you just referred to your girlfriend's mother by her first name. Do you do this?
No, God, no. No, she's still Mrs. Brenner.
Okay.
she will remain Miss Brenner till the day I die.
And does your girlfriend call your parents?
No,
Mr.
she
and
said
Mrs. Acebo.
no. She'll call them Brian and Marie.
Okay.
And not to say like that's wrong, because I feel like that it makes much more sense, and I think that my parents would be more upset if she.
So
were to
was
call
that
them.
a conversation, or that was just her default?
No, yeah, I think it wasn't. I don't know that it was her default. Well, because she knew my mother by her first name prior to us dating.
Sure,
So there
that
was
certainly
that connection
that-
as
yep.
well. And then
has an
I
effect.
constantly refer to my dad as Brian. So
Sure.
there's a decent amount of transiency between the two terms.
Yeah.
In use. But no, I did notice that recently where me and Alyssa went over to my parents' house and said hi, and she said like, "Oh, hi, Marie," and I was like, "Okay." not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. The right thing to do, but still made my ears do a weird little crab rangoon fold.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Calling adults by names is a problem, so I just avoid it.
What if we just get rid of adults? Have we considered that as an option?
just phase them out?
Yeah.
Look, eventually they do it for themselves.
It's true. We're just expediting the process.
But yeah, that is just like a weird dynamic of like, oh, what do you call, like, how do you set this up? And I feel like Katrina does the right thing by she introduces her dad by his first name, thus being like, first name is cool.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
she sets the scene very well, and
Setting
I
the precedent.
appreciate that, rather than just being like, this is my dad.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Yeah, Mr. Last Name.
Right. And it gives Eugene the option so he can still say it with more respect if he wants to.
Or you could go full first name, last name.
Sure.
Hi, Armitage Shanks.
Right. I once met a toilet named that.
Yeah. I'm calling about your car's extended warranty.
But yeah, Armitage just sucks. I don't know. He's an absolute snob. Eugene goes
Yeah.
to vacuum himself up after
Which is hilarious.
Armitage makes fun of him.
The idea that you have to vacuum yourself after getting drywall dust on you.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a shop vac
Yeah.
situation?
Probably.
Must be.
But this is we're just dealing in sitcom tropes here.
Yeah.
Like, it's the meeting of the not girlfriend's father, and it's going to go horribly wrong.
Yeah, well, and it says, like, it transitions from them meeting at Wit's End to the dinner itself going bad by
Yes.
being like, oh, nothing bad could ever happen, then cut to something bad happening.
Right. It's, Eugene spills water on himself, and then we go into, we get confirmation that Eugene is a part-time grad student working on a grant.
Lovely.
Which is information that we've desperately wanted.
Yeah.
Or at least
actually.
I have. To
It
know
makes
that
so much
he
more
is a
sense.
grad student is very good.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that he's a part-time grad student makes his perpetual existence at a university, not a community college, a university, much more understandable.
Yeah,
Like-
So he's doing grad work for the college on a grant while he's working at Wits End and also working at the college. And Armitage considers that him to be a leech.
On the taxpayers' dollars.
Correct. He's like, I don't like grants or scholarships. I hate the idea of career academics. Like, I think you need a real job. Grow up already. They come to the bill, and Eugene's like, I'll pay. And then he finds out that he doesn't have his wallet.
Woof.
What is this lunch, Andrew?
What do you mean?
So the premise is my good friend's father is coming to town. And so I'm going to go out with them. And then I'm going to pay.
Yeah.
Have you ever met a friend's parent
And then paid for their...
no, period. Have you ever met a friend's parent, like, for a meal? Like,
No.
oh, this is a person who I do not know.
No.
They're going to be in town.
But most of my friends growing up weren't divorced or anything like that. So mom and dad were close around and consistently available.
Sure.
I feel like that would be the situation where you're
Sure.
like meeting somebody like that.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, but versus like an out of town. But I'm just like all of my friends whose parents I don't know, which
Yeah.
is most of my friends now that I am an adult.
Yeah.
I would never be like, oh man, I should like go out for lunch to meet that parent.
Yeah, well, okay, so this does feel complicated because Armitage is a successful business person, and it does, I think what is established here and will be continued to be built upon moving forward is Eugene's relationship with Armitage, and that
so you
existing.
think the premise
is a professional
Katrina's
thing.
like, hey, my dad's coming to town. He's a good professional connection for you to have. Let's go out for lunch.
Yeah, I mean that makes the most sense out of any of them. Like that sounds like the most reasonable white lie that she could tell, other than being
I'm deeply in love with you.
Yeah, I'm deeply in love with you. I want you to meet my dad.
Sure.
Yeah. It is a really, really sticky situation now that you say about it.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
just
he
bizarre.
insists
And then
on paying
he's
for
like,
it is
"I'm gonna
weird.
pay for it."
Yeah.
and then he doesn't have his wallet, and which just gives Armitage yet another reason to be, a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And so they part ways. And then Katrina takes her dad to task, which I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
She just starts laying into him once Eugene's gone. She's like, you don't actually believe anything that you just said. And he's like, well, yeah, but I needed to prove a point.
Yeah. Well, and this is such an exhausting thing that I feel is very common with fathers of... And I would say, like, fathers' interactions with their daughters' male friends, or even just potential romantic interest by any stretch, is the sense of, like, well, if you don't fear me, there's no way that you'll respect my daughter. And, like, that's just bad and wrong
Sure.
and, like, not
Yep.
good for your daughter or you.
Yeah. Well, and Armitage is like, well, it doesn't matter. He's going to get over this. Like, he's just some random dude.
Yeah.
Unless he's something more. And I'm like, wait, so your thing was like, I'm just going to be mean to some rando?
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So it is previously established that in the episode where they're
it's
writing the letters
correct,
and they say I
correct.
learned about love and heartbreak.
Yes.
So he's aware.
Yes, he's aware of Eugene. That's the other thing that like stuck out to me here. Is like it's weird that so is he trying to get like is the whole lunch just to bait Katrina into admitting that she has feelings? Like I don't
Kind of. I just don't know
I don't know.
who
So
initiated the lunch.
Right. So there's two things that this episode is doing. It is furthering the Katrina and Eugene situation, like their relationship, in some really interesting ways. And it is also trying to be a sitcom episode about a bad date.
Yeah. And it just can't do both.
It's really, like, it's fun, but I'm like, I cannot figure out any of the logic with this episode in this first thing, especially because of the pivot that it does here. Mm-hmm. Where that as soon as Katrina is like, okay, you know what? I actually do love him.
Yeah.
Then Armitage softens and becomes the nicest dude for the rest of the episode and becomes like her sounding board and like the wit figure for Katrina in all this.
He's
like,
the Jack of this episode.
like he's the father figure.
He's completely passive until it's expressed that there are feelings, and then he's like, all right, I guess I can do something. No, he's not
passive. He's actively antagonistic
True.
and then becomes actively like helpful, and I don't understand his character.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
think like second half of the episode Armitage is like well written and interesting, but is entirely like separate from what we get up front.
Yeah. Well, and it is because they have this conversation, and yeah, like you said, Armitage was like his response to Katrina finally breaking down and expressing his or her feelings in the situation is really, really beautiful and kind, and like it feels so copy pastable to like the LGBTQ issue of like, why do you have a problem with this? Do you love each other? This is working. Nobody's being hurt. Okay.
Right. He's like,
why would you expect me to have a problem with this?
Why don't you just tell him how you feel and get on with it? Is his line.
Yeah.
Like he is immediately like good supportive dad once he knows that those are the rules. But if the premise is that he's being a jerk to Eugene to assert himself as like dominant father for this future relationship,
or to like refine Eugene before he can get to his daughter,
but he doesn't. I guess maybe is that what he's putting on because he thinks it's just Eugene who's showing interest? And once he finds out that it's mutual interest, then he pivots and is nice? Maybe?
Yeah.
Is that what we're supposed to get?
Well, okay, so and my impression that I got was that perhaps Armitage was mad at Eugene for dragging his feet regarding their relationship because Armitage has known about it for a while and he's been familiar with it, and it's like, why is this guy not just committing to my daughter? You know, like,
yeah,
we've been hanging out for a while, and then she's written me letters, and this is important.
Right. That unfortunately then just feels like you're taking away Katrina's agency in this.
Oh, 100%.
Which might be fair. But Armitage is like really considerate of that going forward. Like, I mean, yeah. It's weird to have him be both one of the best, most relatable characters of this episode and also the villain.
Yeah. Yeah, that you do make an excellent point in that.
Like, I can't quite figure it out. And he's so above and beyond understanding, where Katrina like gets nervous and she's like, but like, Eugene's not a Christian and I don't expect you to understand. And Armitage is like, no, I totally get that. And we're like, what?
Yeah, we're just gonna gloss over that.
Like you're giving the like there's an opportunity for there to be more tension there, and he just immediately deflates it. And I'm like, well, then why were we so tense to begin with?
Yeah.
It's odd. Like I don't quite get what the choice they were trying to make with him was.
Well, and I think more so what they're trying to do is present the choice as equally important and valid to both Katrina and Eugene in regards to their own unique set of circumstances.
Yep.
And what they're experiencing. I think, like Katrina admits that, like, everything with Eugene's been like negatively impacting her schooling and her studies, and there's all of this stuff going on, and she's going through this big change.
Well, it's not the being with Eugene. It's specifically the way he phrases it is like being near but not with.
Yeah,
is like what's putting this strain on you of like you're constantly like living in this tension between like
you want what you can't have.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I've tried it. Doesn't go well.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Maybe this is why I snapped at you before we started the episode, Andrew. Maybe this is why I was extra sensitive to the topic we discussed beforehand.
Who's to know?
Yeah, couldn't possibly know that. And so Armitage just kind of what?
I said we live in mystery.
Yeah, Armitage just puts a kind of an ultimatum, and it's like, look, you either need to move forward with Eugene or like jump ship.
Yeah,
like you living in this state of limbo is like wrecking your is just wrecking you. You both like, and it's that much more difficult because it's like they both want it, but they feel like they cannot have it given where they are each individually at this moment in time, which is different than pining after someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also a problem, but like this hits specifically hard because it's like, oh, that like, yeah, we both want this. It's an internal conflict for the two of us. It's not an external conflict between me and this person who I like and they don't like me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, we both want this and we both know we shouldn't.
Yeah, we both want this and we also both know that we're heading different directions as our trajectory currently exists. And I think that that's a very cool type of relationship dynamic to hold. And there's not a lot of that in conservative media, at least in my experience, especially with children's shows. So like I do appreciate this as an example of like, yeah, these people are both, just trying to do the best thing by themselves. Yeah. And unfortunately, there are certain amounts of incompatibility that makes it not viable, not as viable of a commitment long term.
Yeah. I mean, look, now that we get past the sitcom of this episode, it is incredible. Like, this episode, I think, is so well written.
Yeah,
and, like,
okay,
I
agree.
Really,
the dialogue is fantastic.
I really appreciate what McCusker's doing here. I think, I think that the first bit is a fun listen, but I'm kind of like, okay, what's the point? And the second half, I'm like, oh man, like we are firing on all cylinders here. Like, this is an interesting, like, bringing an interesting lens to a real struggle.
Yeah. Which I think it's interesting, and we don't have to spend too much time talking about it, but was that a big thing for you growing up as far as like you like dating somebody that wasn't a Christian was completely off the table at all times? And like, was there ever a person that you were interested in that wasn't a Christian that you thought like, oh, maybe if something like this, like, were you ever put in a position where you were tempted to be an evangelist dater?
No, I think that it was so far off the table that it never got to that point.
That's fair.
There is one person who, when I think back, I'm like, oh, like, honestly, one of my bigger regrets of just like, man, I was bad to that person and I feel bad about it. And like, that is a relationship that I have like long since lost. And like, it bugs me a little bit because I'm just like, man, I was just like fully oblivious to that person's desire. Meanwhile, like, also like using them in a way where I was like, this person I never even considered dating.
Yeah. But
like was very like positioned myself very closely to. And like, yeah, just felt like continued, like that's one that, I genuinely like still feel bad about, where I'm like, man, like I did not do right by you. Like it was. So,
if you're listening to this show, just know that Dylan's sorry.
Yeah, no, truly. But like, because that person wasn't a Christian, it was never even a consideration that I would be romantically interested in them, even though I probably very much made it appear to them that this was a possibility.
Yeah.
It never was to me, and yes, I feel very bad.
And that's I mean, there's two ways you can take that, because there's parts Where it's like when you're so comfortable with somebody that you like, when you're so comfortable with the relationship as it exists, you're allowed to be the best, like you're the most authentic person of your version of yourself, which arguably makes you more attractive. But unfortunately, if that person is not interested, then yeah, you just are left in a sticky situation. I had my dad's dad was a notoriously non-believer growing up, still non-believer. And his mother, my grandma, was a believer. And so I kind of did consider, I think it was 1920, just the idea that, hey, maybe this is something that I could do. Maybe I could be in a relationship with somebody that's really loving and fulfilling, and we just don't feel that way. And the answer is no. I tried, it didn't work. It's the unfortunate reality, and I wish I didn't agree with this, because it does feel kind of like well, why would you put that line there? But it's very hard to translate the experience and the importance of my experience of spirituality and God and my relationship with Jesus Christ to somebody that doesn't really have a framework for it, or if they do, it's from a kind of pluralistic lens where it's like, okay, yeah, that's good for you. There's no real absolute meaning. This is just a myth that you're telling yourself, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think in anything, if there is something that is very core to who you are,
yeah,
to be like, well, I can just be with someone who doesn't understand that thing, is just
ridiculous,
right? Yeah. Like that. Like if you expand the premise out to be like, rather than the like unequally yoked thing, and just expand it out to be like, there is something that is very important to the core of who I am, and being with someone who doesn't understand that would be difficult. Yeah. Like, then everyone's like, well, yeah, obviously.
Well, and so like, I would say is it's more than just the understanding thing, because I think that there's willingness. I've found, especially in my experience, that there was willingness to understand the value of it and to maybe learn more about it and explore it. But for me, like, I want to be with somebody that has the independent motivation to develop their relationship with God alongside me.
Sure.
Like I would much rather not have to explain its importance to me.
Sure.
Not even,
which is kind of the situation in this episode with Eugene and Katrina, where it's like, it's not that Eugene
doesn't appreciate
closed off or thinks that this thing is bad, but it's that it is not his.
Yeah.
And yeah, so no, I get it from that. I was maybe flippant with saying understand it, because I get you.
It
like
is.
There is a level of deeper of like, I don't know, being in alignment on a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and just, when it comes to something like religion, which entirely changes the way that you view the world, the way that you view yourself, the attitudes that you have in day-to-day life, like it does affect everything to a certain extent, and you can work to overcome that barrier and understanding. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't necessarily need that mutual desire to be in a functioning, healthy relationship. But for myself, like, I've just learned that, like, I do need that, and like I need that in a way that I wish wasn't true. I wish I could be more independently strong in my faith, so that being in a relationship with somebody that is of a different belief or whatever isn't influencing my confidence in myself moving forward and my decision making and what I want and everything. Even if we were to be moving towards a joint goal or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's something that I have a small amount of experience with, and it's one of the unfortunate realities of conservatism that I've still kind of kept, it's like...
But I wouldn't... But it's not exclusive to that.
No, God, no.
Because it's like, right, I mean, if you're
Hindu, if you're Buddhist, if you're...
Sure, but even if you're not, but you claim a specific political identity, or, I mean, there are all of us have values that we're like, wow, if this person can't like be in alignment with me on this thing, then it's just fundamentally not going to work.
Yeah.
Like that's true of everyone on Earth.
Yeah.
Like there has to be some criteria to narrow in on who's my person. And
Dylan,
taking
I'm bi. That's not an option. We're going backwards. We're trying to open the criteria.
Well, see, Andrew, by being bi and needing a Christian, you've really narrowed it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the thing is you were like, let me take two things that are not necessarily opposed to each other, but are a small Venn diagram.
Yeah, that overlap.
And really narrow in the field here.
Those circles just kiss each other barely.
Yeah, maybe there's more overlap as time goes on.
I think so. I do think so. Compatibility is very interesting, and the way that the church interacts with it, I think, is viable to change over the next couple years, over my lifetime, I would say. But no, yeah, I will say that, like, I do kind of appreciate this aspect of Odyssey of always emphasizing just the importance of people kind of being on the same page as you when it comes to, like, who are you forming really meaningful connections with?
Yep.
And as somebody that's, like, made basically all my friends through church and then tried to make friends not through church, it's a very different environment.
And I love, and we can get into it later in this episode, but I love that this isn't all just coming from Katrina's end.
Exactly.
This is extremely mutual. Maybe to a degree that's unrealistic, but in a way that I think is really beneficial to see play out.
Yeah, I'm going to say, if they've had a year to mull this over, I guess it could be pretty mutual at this point.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, we then have the scene with Jack and Eugene, and Eugene is like explaining to Jack how much of a disaster the whole, dinner or lunch with Katrina's dad was. And Jack's like, whatever, shrug it off, move on. And Eugene's like, but I can. Jack's like, why? It's just a friend. Like, you can meet a friend's dad and it go poorly and whatever. Like, get on with your life. And Eugene's like, okay, well, maybe she's not just a friend. And Jack's like,
no
great.
Shit.
like we all know. Thank you for acknowledging this, Eugene. And like Jack's just very good in this moment. And we kind of end this scene with him asking Eugene because Eugene's talking about how like they've been yo-yoing for a year now and they just can't seem to make any progress. And he's like, well, sounds like maybe you need a drastic change. Are you prepared for that? And then we jump over to Katrina and Connie. They meet at Connie's house for their Bible study rather than at Wits End where they typically have. And just a great conversation ensues.
Yeah.
Katrina starts talking about the Eugene dynamic and just talking about how she can't see herself doing this with him if he's not a Christian. Maybe if she got together, like he could become one. And Connie just like jumps in, cuts it off, and is like, look, I've been down this road. Like, evangelism dating is not a good idea. Like, do not go down this path.
I would go as far as to say that, like, not only is evangelism dating bad, dating somebody that's a Christian in a different way that you are a Christian can also be really bad.
Sure.
Or that is less motivated in their Christian faith than you are. Like, if there's, I would say, the next step above this is the nominal Christian and, like, passionate, faithful Christian.
Sure.
Whereas, like, there's
cultural Christian versus like person who makes it a part of their day-to-day life. And
and just is intentional about internalizing it and applying the truths and the values in the way that they live their life every day. it makes the like it makes the unequally yoked image a lot more clear in my mind as far as that, where it's like comparing nothing to something is it's almost easier to understand how it could exist plurally than somebody that's like really apathetic being with somebody that's really passionate.
Sure. Yeah. It's just, Connie just explains this very, very well, and she does it with just so much clarity. Like, she is not hemming and hawing with her response to Katrina, nor is she being a jerk by any means.
No.
But she's just coming in pretty definitively with, like, coming from her own lived experience and her belief and being a more mature believer. And she's just like,
Connie is to Katrina as to what Wit was to Connie.
Yeah.
So like,
and it's so good where like we have Wit going away really forces Connie to step up in a way that rules.
Yeah.
And like this episode is such a good just version of that. This conversation is great and made funnier by the fact that Eugene's a grad student, but he went to college early. Katrina is seemingly undergrad.
Yeah.
Like she's
presumably
actually
she says finish your degree.
Correct. Connie will not graduate high school for another 3 years in the show.
So presuming she's like a sophomore?
I mean, but she has been for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it's,
I mean, she was like in
7
ninth
years
grade.
at this point. Yeah. I mean, when she shows up in Odyssey, she's 15.
Oh, yeah. So that's...
And that was 7 years ago.
Oof.
Look, she is in the show for 10 years before she graduates, or maybe over 10 years before she graduates high school. So it's, we can't actually, take them to task for that, because what does it matter? But it is just, a funny underlying thing. But Connie just in this conversation then is just like, we need to pray that someone else would come into Eugene's life, because frankly, like, it's not going to be you.
Yeah.
Like, you're too tied up here. You're not going to be the thing that saves him, or like he's not going to, if he starts believing because of you, it's not going to be real.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the, God gives you enough rope to hang yourself, give people the dignity to fail. Like, I feel like what this episode has made abundantly clear is that it is really ultimately Katrina and Eugene's individual choice as to what they want for themselves moving forward. And the differences in what those choices look like are indicative of who they are as people, but also not necessarily absolute as to who they're going to become, as we will see.
Yeah. Yeah. So we jump to Connie and Connie. So we jump to Katrina and Armitage, and there's a brief conversation with the two of them, which Katrina just kind of like, explains some of her conversation with Connie, and then Armitage suggests that he's got the perfect solution here. The thing that makes the most sense is just for Katrina to move back home and attend university there,
which is Chicago,
maybe
ish area.
Yeah, that is my impression, but I don't know that for sure. But that's basically that whole scene, and then we jump to Eugene and Jack working on the Samson display. And Jack starts to do this story about, Samson and how these women of other faiths drew him away from God. And I was just like, are we really doing like this? And then Jack just like
flips it
beautifully.
Yeah.
And my note is just like, Jack, you madman. I can't believe you flipped this, but like, great work.
Yeah.
Where Eugene's like, oh, I was expecting, like, I figured I was the Delilah in this story. And Jack's like, look, like, maybe your relationship with Katrina is just as much is the barrier to you finding your own faith.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, you've been, safe here in Odyssey, in Wit's End. Like, you've grown really comfortable here. Like, we've made an environment that is comfortable
they use
for
the word,
you.
Was it rational, reasonable?
Yeah,
like
reasonable.
Reasonable.
Yes. You have no, like, there's nothing occurring that is giving you reason to become a Christian. Like, you don't you're not struggling in any way.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting all of the upsides and none of the down. Like, it's just like your life.
Yeah.
Like,
you have all the benefits of having a bunch of really good, kind Christian friends and none of the emotional baggage of worshiping a God you're never good enough for.
Right. And he's just like, you kind of drift along hoping for the best. Once again, and he's like, maybe something drastic needs to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
and I love how Jack says in this conversation, because he's bringing up what he said before. He said something drastic, but I don't know what that is. He's not telling him to become a Christian. He's not saying that is the answer, but he's more so just suggesting that, if he wants his life to head in a different direction than it's currently heading, judging by his actions, he's going to have to do something different. Or something significant's going to have to change.
Yeah, and it's just... Yeah.
It's great advice, and honestly...
It's so good.
It tracks with everything that we got from the road trip, where it was like... Really, once he got away from Odyssey and the Christianity...
Right. Once there was a change, he realized what he was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much of... Yeah, just like the ease of just coasting.
Mm-hmm.
Of being like, oh, there's... Like, I can just kind of do... Like... just keep doing my life and I don't face any real challenges. So I don't really need to engage with like what my faith is.
Yeah. Insulate yourself as best you can from those like really tough existential or spiritual questions.
Right. Oh, look, no one close to me dies, so I don't have to think about what happens.
Wait, is that true?
Yeah.
Oh,
Nerd! I haven't, like, I mean, we brushed up against it last episode. If we ever do Mortal Coil, we'll talk about it more, but like,
yeah,
I have not truly lost someone close.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
That means that there is a whole spectrum of things that I am shielded from needing to grapple with.
Yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And the time will come.
Exactly. And hopefully
time.
I have the strength to make it through that trial.
You'll be just fine.
It's an area in which like I haven't had to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the point being made here of like, look, if everything is just like easy and being handed to you and you don't have to face challenge, like, then you won't. And this is really like pulling back the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
2 episodes from now is the start of the Blackguard arc.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like the final Blackguard. Well, not counting the VR aftermath, but like that final 11 parts of Blackguard is 2 episodes from now.
Whew.
So it's like, it is so like McCusker is clearly writing this with that in mind.
Yeah.
But this idea of, okay, like, you're gonna face some trials now.
Mm-hmm. And that like,
but that like it's gonna be good.
Yeah. That choosing the best thing for you is often choosing the harder thing for you, and that like maybe what he learned on the road trip was that he is most comfortable here, And can still be true, but in order for him to grow in the way that he needs to, you obviously have to make yourself uncomfortable. Like, yeah. You don't get better at something by doing something you're already good at. you know? Like, you have to do something you're not good at first, and then you can get better at it.
Yeah. And so then Katrina comes in. Jack leaves. We get the scene between Eugene and Katrina. Mm-hmm. And this is where she admits that she loves Eugene, and Eugene gets so excited and just like starts to talk, and Katrina's like, no, stop, like, listen here. And kind of is like, look, are you going to become a Christian? Eugene's like, no, doing that right now for this reason would betray both of us.
Yeah,
which
great line. So good. Like he says, like, I have no intention of doing that, and as much as I love you, if I were to do it, it's not the exact wording, but as much as I would love to do it just out of my love for you and go through the motions, like, that would ultimately be to both of our destruction.
Yep.
And that's like, I mean, it's real. It's what we all know to be true. But hearing Eugene say it to Katrina in that confrontation is so tough, because, like, you would think that Katrina would be the one that would have to say it.
Yeah. And she keeps going on, and she just kind of brings up the exact thing Jack was just talking about of, like, no one at Wit's End really asks anything of you. Like, you're not being put into a tough spot by any of them. They're not forcing you to make a decision.
Ideologically.
Right.
Theologically.
And she's not doing it either. Mm-hmm. But it does, like, it brushes up against, like, the thing that I maybe think about most existentially, which is, like, where is the line between, like, confronting someone versus just being there and being present for them. And this is Katrina saying, like, it's not a confrontation entirely.
No.
But this is her point, removing herself from the equation, going like...
It's a statement of belief regarding the circumstances and a
but
plan of action.
Correct. But it is taking an action versus just being there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, this is an interesting thing that it's like, it's not confrontation, really. I mean, it kind of is. But it's not confrontation as much as it is, but it is still a decisive action.
Yeah, and through communication based on what she wants for herself.
Correct. And for him.
Yeah.
Like, she's not doing this self-seekingly.
No, certainly not.
But yeah, just
But it is, I mean, obviously...
it's to her benefit.
Yeah,
but
it's to both of their benefits.
Yeah, exactly. But she's not. Yeah, it's not.
It's not like she wants to do something that Katrina or that Eugene doesn't want her to do.
Yeah.
It's more of I'm doing this because I've determined that this is what's best for me, and you're not there yet, and that's okay. But I'm not gonna hold up. You know, train's got to leave on time. So
yeah, and also
you can catch the next
if
one.
I stay, you'll never get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is the other big piece, and yeah,
I'd be interested to explore the codependency in Eugene prior to his acceptance of Jesus. Wonder if there's like a diagnosable pattern there.
Yeah, I don't know. Katrina's statement is like, I need to get out of the way so God can deal with you directly on his own terms. And she's like, so what I'm saying is, like, I'm leaving. And Eugene, like, kind of loses it and gets a little sneering.
Yeah.
And is just like, we're both adults. We can work this out. Like, it shouldn't have to be this way. Which kind of speaks to the tension that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Which is like, it seems ridiculous that you're like, oh man, like, I have such a great relationship with this person. We both should date, but I'm letting this thing of my faith, of like us being in a different place with our faith, be a barrier. And that's like directly what Eugene is calling out here, where he's like, look, like, why don't we just work through this like adults? Like, don't just like run away from this problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's clear that that's not what Katrina is doing or what the intention is here, but
well, it's really hard to tackle individual problems collectively. You know, like it's really, I am by no means an expert, but I will say, like, yeah, it tackling your own issues through the lens of a joint relationship compared to tackling your issues through the sense of, you know, your own personal community and relationship to family and friends and stuff. They're two completely different things because you're constantly confronted with the tangible consequences of your negative personal interactions, where it's like you can kind of put on a face around other people all the time, but if you're living with somebody or if you're constantly interacting with somebody for, you know, food and water and shelter purposes, it's a lot harder to move. It's a lot harder to work around.
Sure. And then Katrina exits the scene and goes to her dad's car just in tears.
Yeah.
Expresses like, I never, like, that was the worst thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, her dad just kind of lets her sit in that, and they leave.
And that's the episode.
And that's the end of Katrina. We never see her.
Yep.
It was nice knowing her.
She's the chairman. That's who it's been the whole time.
But like, it's interesting because I am like, it's like she's going to be with family, but her family is not on the same page faith-wise, and like I don't know what her support system is there. Whereas she like seems to have like a pretty good support system in Odyssey with Connie and whatnot, to where I'm like, oh man, like that's not going to be like fun and easy. But this episode really does paint it as like, but it's what needs to be done.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. No. Often, especially unfortunately, in my experience, it is the hard decisions that are the most necessary to make, and it is the uncomfortable ones that need to happen the most. And you know, you can fear it, or you can lean into the fear, or you know, it's like you can dread pain if you're going to the doctor's office and you're going to get a shot, or you can lean into the reality and accept the fact that you are going to experience it. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it's just a thing. So yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I appreciate a lot of what this episode is doing and saying. And I wholeheartedly agree that the writing is really fantastic. Yeah, Armitage's is very sleazy in the beginning. I didn't quite clock his turnaround as comprehensively as you did, but I do really appreciate his acceptance in that scene where Katrina is finally willing to confess her affection for Eugene to him, and he's like, yeah, of course. Why would I have a problem with this? Dylan, do you have any closing thoughts? Wrap up?
I don't think I have. I don't feel like I have any thoughts to close further than where we are.
Do you have anything to plug?
No. I'm plugging. I don't know. Okay. We just did my letterbox. I do not need to do my letterbox again. I just look. I just wrote some longer form stuff on Letterboxd that I'm pretty proud of. You know what, Andrew? That's what I'm plugging. We are, as this episode airs, like, I don't know, over a week since Easter, but in the run-up to Easter, I watched The Last Temptation of Christ, and I really, really liked it.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
It is good.
Okay, I mean, I know that's like obviously, or that's supposed to be superior to the other one, Mel Gibson's.
Well, it's an entirely different animal.
Really?
Yeah. So like The Last Temptation of Christ is, if you are to read it on a surface level, entirely like it's very heretical.
Or more like
it's
historical.
Not,
it's
no.
less.
No, it's
less spiritual, or what?
It's not. Oh man, how are we gonna do this? So the deal with The Last Temptation of Christ. Martin Scorsese directs a Paul Schrader script based on a book called The Last Temptation of Christ. That book is an examination of Christ's life through like a metaphorical lens. Like it's not trying to retell the Gospels. It's trying to examine this tension between being like fully God and fully man, and like what that would look like in reality. And like Paul Schrader, who goes on to write like First Reformed, which I adore, and many other good movies, and wrote like Taxi Driver before this. Like he's,
that one I have seen.
He's well established. Paul Schrader, he's horrible and whatever. He's not a nice man, but he's
he's talented.
He's a solid writer. And anyway, so it's him. Yeah, Willem Dafoe plays Christ.
What?
It is.
I need to watch this now.
It is great. My feeling on it is, or just my feelings in general. So like, I think that it is kind of folly to try and do a direct, sincere, and accurate adaptation of the Bible into film. I think that is kind of a bad premise because inherently you're going to miss out on a lot of nuance, as you always do adapting page to screen.
Yeah.
But in the case of the Bible,
there's a lot
missing out on nuance is kind of like the whole point of the Bible.
Yeah.
like there's not
there's that's most of the battle.
Yeah, and so I find it way more interesting for someone to take a
very clear lens.
To use the biblical setting to open it by saying this movie is not based on the gospel. Like that is the opening title screen to this film. They are not hiding that. But to be like, we're going to now play around in this incredibly rich sandbox to say things about faith and belief and deity in a way that is interrogating it, is not adapting it or having like a take of like, this is it's not having the take of like, this is true or this is false. It's just like, look, here's a story. What if we like take this, like what if we use this as the base to tell something else that does contain truth, even if it's not the truth?
Well, and if we're not like, it seems like it's less about the truth in itself and more about the questions that are being asked and putting it in an environment in which those questions can be asked.
Right. So if you are at all opposed to a representation of Christ that does not paint him as perfect, then you're not going to like this movie. But if you take it as a movie that is doing something really interesting about the idea of Christ and what that means, then it becomes really, really good and a rich text. But in the same way that like the Left Behind books aren't Bible, neither is this movie.
It's not a great source of
like, it's so weird that this, well, I mean, I understand it, but like this movie gets so much, like got so much flack upon release from, people of faith and like is not like,
secularizing or Christianity,
right?
And
but I'm like,
the gospel and yada yada.
Yep. But I think it is great.
And
so that is a very long-winded plug for The Last Temptation of Christ.
I would have liked nothing more on this post-Easter recording session. It makes perfect sense, though, in the sense that it almost feels a bit prideful to try and tell the story of Christ in like historical accuracy. And so like it makes a lot more sense to just pick one aspect of it and tease that. And by the way, that's how academics study the Bible in general. Like we don't just do all the exegesis at once. We do the one and then the other one and then the other one. And then we pair two of those together and then we pair the six of them together. And and so on and so forth. It's a lot of breaking down from different perspectives. That sounds like a great movie. I should watch it. Yeah. And Willem Dafoe as Jesus is very exciting.
Dude, the casting is inspired. The other thing that I will mention, the score is incredible. Peter Gabriel did the score to this movie, and you are in fact wearing a Genesis shirt.
I am. Gotta love him. I don't know that Peter Gabriel is in this.
This is probably no. I think by the time that shirt's around, you're in the Phil Collins era. But regardless, we like Peter Gabriel. That score is astounding. Anyways, Andrew, is there something you would like to plug?
So there's this great free meditation app that I got a couple weeks ago, I want to say, that I've been using at night before bed. And when I say like a free meditation app, this isn't like Calm or Headspace where it's like got a handful of meditations and there's tons of ads and it's not great. Like, this is a very comprehensive meditation app that has a lot of different types of meditations and stuff, and they're all full length, and the UI is really good, and it's all free. So I would highly recommend it. There's different meditations.
What's the app, Andrew?
It's called Soothing Pod.
Okay.
Soothing Pod on iOS. I'm not sure if it's available on Android.
Check the links in the description. I will put them there for both platforms if they exist.
The last one I listened to was on grief and loss. But there's plenty. There's like positive affirmations. There's sleep, sleep meditations. There's stories. They have like bedtime stories. So one's like about Poseidon. One's Treasure Island.
Nice.
Yeah. Very cool, very nice, relaxing, and free, which is hard to come by. So enjoy.
Hey, there you go. We do love free.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that being said, we will be back next week for episode 323. A little credit, please.
Bye, guys.
Bye.